Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we'll talk about the top 5 countries to study to be a software engineer in 2023. So this is really my personal preference and it will depend on which country you're from, but this is really the 5 countries I would recommend for anyone that wants to start a career in software engineer. And so to start with ranking, so the first country I will talk about is Canada. So why Canada, you will ask me?
What exactly does Canada want?
We want more money. Yeah, more money.
So I will show you why. So if you can see on my screen, so this is the Shanghai ranking from 2023, and we can see that Canada has a lot of universities in the top 100, so that are really good, like the University of Toronto, which is the best in Canada. You have McGill University, which is really known and good if you speak French, because this one is in Montreal, but I think it's also good if you speak English. So Canada, it has really great universities, and Canada is a country really well known for immigration. As you can see on my screen, Canada on average they have about 500,000 immigrants coming every year, which is really huge. Even me, like right now I'm in Dubai, and Dubai doesn't have that much immigrants, and Dubai has about 90% of the population that is immigrant, but they don't have 500,000 people coming every year, it's still less. So Canada is really one of the countries that attract a lot of immigration and is welcoming to immigration. And if you see on Wikipedia, you can see that even right now there's 23% of the population that is from immigration, and there will be between 29 to 34% by 2041, which is really important, and that just shows that Canada is welcoming for people coming from outside. So it's a really good destination if you want to settle in a new country. So they have great universities, but the only drawback could be that it can cost quite a lot of money, so about 20,000 USD per year, which is something to take into account. So I understand that it may be a bit too high for you. You could look for scholarship, because if you have a really good grades at high school, you could potentially get a sponsorship or a scholarship, but this is not something really easy to get. But why I still recommend Canada even though they have really high fees for universities, it's because if you study there, it will be easier to get a job there afterwards, and the jobs there are really great. So if we look for the salaries in Toronto, for instance, so on average we will get more than 100,000 Canadian dollars per year. So if we look after tax, because it is what is important, we will say get about 75,000 Canadian dollars, which if we look in USD, it's about 55,000 US dollar, which is a really high salary. So it's really great for software engineer possibilities if you want to work there later after your studies. And Canada has a really great countryside, and it's really nice if you want to go hiking or if you like skiing. So Canada would be my top choice to where to go live. The only drawback is that life is getting more expensive now, and the weather can be really bad during winter if you don't like cold weather.
How cold is it? 2 feet of snow, -5. Shorts and a t-shirt's probably good today, pal.
I personally don't really enjoy if it's too cold, so Canada is not great for me, but I could understand anyone that wants to live there. Cities can be really nice, like Vancouver, where it's not as cold, and the countryside is really nice. You can see the mountain there. If we look at what it looks like this Vancouver, it's really a nice city, I guess, but then it can get really expensive now, so it depends what you want. And then for schools, for instance, it can get really expensive if you have kids, and for health it can be a bit difficult, but still it's my number one choice because of how easy it is to go there, because they are very welcoming for immigrants. So we just finished with number one, that is Canada, which is really great for immigration. But the number 2, which could also be number 1, is maybe even better because of lower fees for universities and higher salaries. So the number 2 is Switzerland. So why Switzerland? So if we go on the Shanghai ranking, Switzerland is a really small country. Canada is also really big but not a lot of population, but Switzerland is even smaller and the population is really small. But they still got like 5 universities in the top 100 with ETH Zurich that is really well known. So they have really top of the age universities. And the tuition fees for the universities are really low. For instance, in ETH, it's only 730 Swiss francs per semester. So in dollar, it's about $1,200 per year. So it's really low. I'm not sure it's for international students. For international students, it may be a bit higher. Actually, no, it's the same price for international students, which is not the case for every country. For instance, Canada, it's cheaper for French people because they got some agreements. So it really depends where you're from. Even for Canadian people, it's cheaper to study in Canada than for foreigners. But in Switzerland, it seems to be as cheap for everybody. Like it's really cheap, 1,200. The only drawbacks is that life can be a bit expensive in Switzerland. But what is really great about Switzerland is that life is expensive, but salaries also are really great there. So the salaries on average in Zurich, so it's about 140,000 Swiss francs per year.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
So this is before tax, so after tax, if I put that I'm single and 27 years old, so it's about 8,800 Swiss francs. So in US dollar, it's almost 10,000 US dollar per month, which is really high. So the main benefit of Switzerland is that the salaries are really high. And when you live in Switzerland, you can easily go to France, to Italy, to Germany, to travel, and you have also cheap flights from Zurich. So Switzerland will be a really great choice if you like nature and you want a good quality of life. Actually, Switzerland will be my top choice because of all of this. But it's just for foreigners that are from a country from outside Europe. It may get hard to go into this country compared to Canada, where it's really easy. But like if you're from Europe, Switzerland should be your first destination, obviously, and it will be in the top of my 5 countries to go to study. And there's a lot of things to enjoy in Switzerland, like cheese and chocolate. So yeah, then life may be a bit boring from what I've heard, so it really depends on the lifestyle you want. But Switzerland is really something to consider. But if you don't want to go to Switzerland, or it may be a bit expensive or a bit tiny, there's another European country that I really highly recommend. And so in number 3, I will put Germany. So Germany has the biggest economy in the European Union, really dynamic, there's a lot of migration now. They have big industries. And so if we look at the rankings, we can see that Germany has some good universities in the top 100, like TUM, so Technical University of Munich, that is really well known, and they should usually have the classes in English, at least for master degrees. And so as you can see, it's still quite cheap to study there. So for a bachelor degree, you will pay about 6,000 euros per year, so this is per semester. And for a master degree, it can go up to 12,000 euros per year. So it's still cheap. It's more expensive than Switzerland, but then the cost of living in Germany is lower too, so it's something to take into account. And so the average salary in Munich, so the biggest city is not the capital, but I think it's better to live in Munich than Berlin. Berlin has a lower cost of life, but the life, I think it's much better in Munich. And Munich, the average salary is 72,000 euros per year. So this is before tax. And so after tax, so if we put about 70,000, we can see that we will still get 42,000 euros after tax. So there's a big portion of the salary that goes into tax. But then the tax pays for healthcare, schools, and you have a lot of services, public services. So then if you don't want to pay tax, maybe it's not the best country, but you will really get your money worth it. And 42,000 euro per year is still a big salary. You can easily live with a family there because you don't have to pay for schools, for instance, in Germany. So it's quite good salary, I think. And if you live in Munich, you can really go to the Alps really easily if you like to go skiing. You can go to France, Switzerland, Italy easily, to Austria too. So it's a really nice country to live in if you want. I didn't talk about the salaries in Berlin, but Berlin also is a dynamic city with a lot of startups, so you may easily find a job in Berlin too. But then about Germany, you may need to speak German, and German is a really complicated language, so it depends what you want. But it's still my number 3 country to study for becoming a software engineer. And now I will talk about the number 4. So number 4, it is my country. So if you don't know, I'm from France, and I think France has a lot of advantages if you want to become a software engineer.
Hi, my name is Luis, and today I'm in Paris to try the top 5 and we're gonna see which one is the best.
So if we look at the rankings, France also has really great universities in the top 100%, like Paris-Saclay, Paris Sciences and Letters, Sorbonne. So all these universities are in Paris, actually mostly in the suburbs, except Sorbonne. And this one, they have some campuses inside Paris, but usually it's in the suburb. But it's really great universities if you want to become a software engineer, because I know many of my friends, many of them got a job for Facebook, Amazon or big companies like this, because education is quite good for maths and computer science in France. And usually when you study for a master degree, classes will be in English, and there's like 50% of international students in these classes, so it's quite good. And the fees to go to a university can be quite cheap. So for a European student, it's between 800 euro per year and 3,000 euro per year. My university was about 3,000 euro per year, but usually it's a public university, so it's quite cheap. But it's a bit more expensive for foreigner students, so students from outside Europe. I think it can go up to 5,000 euro per year, which is still cheap compared to Canada, the UK or the US, but it's something to consider. And so the only reason I didn't put France in the top 3 is because salaries are not that great in France compared to Germany, UK, the US or Canada. So as you can see, on average you will make about 52,000 euro per year. When you know, like, you can easily spend 1,000 euro for housing in Paris, so it's not that great because this is also before tax. And if we look after tax, so it's about 40,000 euro per year. Actually, it's not that far away from the German salaries. How come? Because the 25% of tax you pay is not the only tax that you pay. Your company will also pay some tax. So if you see that you earn 40,000 euro per year, you pay this much tax, but then your company will also pay 23,000 euro per year. So in total you will be taxed at almost 50%, because France is one of the most taxed countries still. But you will also get some benefits like free school, like a really good healthcare. Even though it's getting lower now, the quality of service you get is still like a really good service. Usually you don't need expensive private insurance in France. The same is true in Germany, but I think in Switzerland you need to pay for healthcare. Like, it can be more expensive, but then you get a really higher salary in Switzerland, so it kind of balances it out. But why I put France is because even though the salary is not the best, what is really good is the work-life balance, because in France you have a lot of holidays. Because if we look on Wikipedia, with the country with the most paid leave, so France is kind of good because we have between 36 and 48 days of holidays. So this is 11 days of public holidays, and this is the number of annual leaves you can take. If we compare to Germany, it's a bit lower. I can get up to 30, and Switzerland it will be up to 27, so even a bit less. And Canada, it can be between 16 to 32. So I guess if you work as a software engineer, it will be more between like 25, 30. But to compare with the US, where you have like 0 is the or minimum actually. But yeah, in the US usually they have 8 holidays per year, which is really low, or 10 after 1 year. So like 2 weeks, 10 days compared to 30 days in France. And in France, so you have a lot of holidays and annual leaves. You also have a really nice countryside. You can go to the Bretagne, you can go to the southeast, like Aix-en-Provence, Marseille, Les Calanques. And you can go to the Alps if you like to ski, and also in the border with Spain, in the Pyrenees. So there's a lot of things to do in France if you like nature. Even if you like surfing, on the west coast is really nice. But then the salaries are not that great yet, so it really depends on what you want. And now in number 5, the country I didn't put before is because of the quality of life, I think, because you need a private health insurance, you don't have a lot of holidays, and so this country is the United States.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was in America. I'm sorry.
So it's still a really good country because it's the country where you can really get the highest salaries, and the universities are among the best ones. But the thing is that you can get fired really easily compared to France or Germany, where it's complicated to get fired. For instance, for the big layoff in tech companies like Facebook, there was a lot of layoff in the United States and in UK, but not in France and Germany, because of the labor laws that really protect the salaried people. But still, the US is really good, because if we look at the rankings, in the top of the list is only US universities like Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, Princeton. So all the big universities are in the US. The only thing is that it can cost a lot of money. So when we look, it can easily cost 55 to 60,000 USD per year, which is the most expensive of all the universities we've seen before. And usually when you go there, you have to contract a student loan. So it depends if you are comfortable taking a big loan, because it will be paid off if you study in software engineer. And if you study in the university there, you can easily find a job in the US. So that's kind of a good thing too, because the average salary in New York, for instance, is 143,000 US dollars per year. So it's a lot. And after tax, so it will become 110,000 US dollars per year, which still is significant. So it's probably the higher salary you can get. But then you get you don't get a lot of holidays. You need to pay for private insurance sometimes. You need to pay for schools if you have children. So you really need to think about this. And like cost of life in New York can be quite expensive. You can easily pay 3,000, 4,000 US dollars per month for a one bedroom in New York. So yeah, it depends on what you want. I personally don't want to go to the US because of the quality of life and stuff like this, but if your main goal is to get a lot of money and be able to save up and to retire early, I guess it's probably the best option. Even though Switzerland is really good, so if you're from Europe, I would rather go to Switzerland than to the United States. But then you also have a lot of big companies in the United States, so that's something you have to consider depending on your plans. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and tell me if you choose one of these 5 countries, or if you have another country that you think is even better to study in. I didn't talk about other European countries because there's so many of them, and like Sweden can be really good too, for instance. I didn't talk about any Asian countries because usually it's not that great. You don't easily get a visa to stay there after you study. If you're a foreign student, it's not as easy to find a job there. I studied in Korea, for instance, for 6 months there as an exchange student, but it was impossible to find a job there after. And even salaries can be really low in Korea and Japan, because in Korea, for instance, there's so many students going into technology, so there's really too much people there, and salaries are getting lower compared to what you could get in the US and even France. So I would not recommend to go to Asia. If you have the possibility, you could go there afterwards if you first get your degree in Europe or in North America. And you can work as a freelance and live in one of these countries. It's really nice, this. There's also Australia, which I didn't talk about because the fees are really high for the universities. But then life in Australia is really nice from what I've heard, so it's another possibility. So if you like this video, please subscribe or put a like. And if you have any questions or something you want to tell me, you can leave a comment. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye!